A very good morning to you. It is the 26th of February, this Monday morning. And as usual, on Mondays we have the Youth and Politics segment with myself, Hilda Wadidi. And today we have a very special discussion coming up. I have a very interesting panel with me with regards to the Law Society of Kenya recently concluded elections. It is All Matters LSK. And during the elections that took place, which was on Thursday last week, about 9,009 lawyers participated across the country in the 28 polling stations that were distributed countrywide. And Alan Gishuhi garnered 2,675 votes, while James Mwamu garnered 2,145 votes. So I'd like to introduce my panel from LSK, their advocates themselves. I'll start with the person right next to me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am Uchengo. I practice with Otieno Aloka and Company Advocates, and I'm happy to be here.
All right.
Thank you very much, Hilda. My name is Wycliffe Oyo. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, practicing as such with the firm of Kaplan and Stratton here in Nairobi. Thank you.
Good morning and hello viewers. My name is Julius Juma. I practice law under the name and style of Julius Juma and Company Advocates. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So you're most welcome, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Yes. This process was managed by the IBC. Let me start with the most obvious question. Do you think it was a free and fair process?
Yeah, if you ask me, I think the process was the most fair I've seen. I was personally involved, and I was a super agent for one of the candidates at Milimani Law Courts. And I think IBC did a good job. It was so fair that you couldn't even say that somebody has rigged anything. I think IBC did a good job on this one. Yes.
All right.
Yes, I share similar sentiments, and if you want to know whether IBC did a good job or not, you'd have to look at it from the perspective of the aftermath. And we've not had complaints, if any, about the electoral process. And I think it was one very efficient exercise. It started on time. The voting went on smoothly, and by 5:30 in most of the stations it was done. Counting went on smoothly, despite a few hitches here and there. Results were with us in real time, which I think was really good. And no candidate has raised an alarm about possible rigging or malpractice in the elections. So I'll give it a clean bill of health.
Right. Julius?
Well, I think IBC did a good job, but there are many explanations to it. And credit should also go to the candidates, because usually whenever there are claims or complaints about IBC not doing a good job, it's not entirely because IBC set out not to do a good job. It's because usually the participants in the electoral process always also do certain things that make it not very easy for IBC to do a good job. And so I think the candidates that we had for the various seats did a good job. They did not interfere with the process, and that made IBC do their work well. And secondly, the participants also do not only include the candidates, but also the electorate, the advocates themselves. There were no reasons to suggest that any malpractice may have occurred, because the advocates, who are the electorates, also did a good job. So credit should go to all participants, IBC, the candidates, the advocates, and so on.
All right. Now that the process has just been concluded, and you said that the candidates were fair in their dealings when it came to the election date, let's talk about the campaign process. There was a lot of rumors that there was external influence in terms of this political climate and the LSK elections. What's your opinion on that? Do you think there was any issue with the campaigns?
Usually one would expect external influence to be there, for the reason that LSK holds a very important position in society, and the person who takes up the office of president is a very important person in the society. In fact, that's why the law makes requirement that such a person must be an advocate of very high standing, and an advocate who has practiced for quite a long period of time, so that whether the government or the opposition would want to hold sway in the LSK, so that because if you look at LSK, to start with, is a statutory body. It's created by an act of parliament. The act of parliament, called the LSK Act, makes provisions for what the roles of the society is. And you will find that the roles of the society, number one, is to be the mouthpiece of the little people in the society. They stand in between the government and government institutions, and so they speak for the little people. So that whenever there are issues of public interest, you'd expect LSK to say something, so that the government would want whoever becomes president or the entire council to be on their side. The opposition might also as well want such people to be on their side. And so you'd expect a lot of other interests. Although I cannot say specifically, I cannot pinpoint particular individual or particular arrangement of people that I can say were involved externally, but ideally you'd expect them to be involved.
All right. Oyo, what do you think?
Yes, I think we need to retrace the LSK elections in light of what has been happening in the country generally. And this election came at a time when we just come from a very rigorous election exercise for the presidency and other posts. And hot on that heels, I think we saw probably the most competitive LSK elections ever, if you ask me, in terms of the magnanimity of the campaigns, the setup of the campaigns, the manner in which the candidates traversed the country in search of votes, and you know, the way the campaign was set out generally. And in light of the fact that we are now in a period where social media influence is high, then you could see that the campaigns were as rigorous, if not equal, to what happens in general elections. And now to bring us back to the question as to whether there would be political influence, I think we must look at it from two perspectives. First is that these candidates contesting in the elections and their voters and supporters belong to the general public. Who invariably have political leanings and choices to make, you know. So then from that perspective, we would say that it may not have been apparent that I'm going to vote as a member of the so-and-so political leaning, but when I cast my vote in private, because the elections are by secret ballot, those political choices may influence who I vote for in the elections. That is the first bit. And well, when we finally do an audit of this election, this may come out more apparently, or evidence of it may be little. But the second thing for me is the general role of LSK, as my senior puts it, is that LSK is very important in the political, social and economic life of any country. The law society general is so important that the LSK president should be someone of high esteem, should be someone who influences public opinion. Whenever LSK issues a statement out there, that statement should ring throughout and have a lot of implications, both politically, socially and economically. So it's only rational that the government of the day and even other political actors, including the opposition, would want to have sway in whoever becomes the next LSK president and the next LSK chair. We've not seen it subtly, we've not seen it openly. And we would therefore be rushing to judgment when we say that indeed there was election interference by the political actors.
People say that there is interference from outside because LSK usually determines the appointments of magistrates, judges, and even the Chief Justice. So it means that the politicians will be most heavily interested when it comes to the process. But Ocheng, let me first hear what you have to say, because I have so many responses in regards to what you've just said.
Thank you. You see, we do not live in a vacuum. As lawyers, as my friends have said it, we are part and parcel of the larger community. And in any elections where people have interest, vested interest, be they government or the opposition, there must always be jostling. You want to see a person who is friendly to you occupy those posts. And if elections were to be held in my village today, of course there will be still jostlings. Somebody will say Ocheng comes from this door and this other person comes from this door. It goes up there. Even if it was held in my tribe, the people still say these ones come from this clan and these ones come from this clan. And it goes. If it is Kenya, people will still look at it that way. If it is Africa, we'll still say this African is ours and this non-African is not ours. So that is how society is, and we cannot run away from it. Now, coming to LSK elections, of course, we can't say, I didn't see anybody being given money to vote in a particular way, and it will be demeaning of lawyers for me to say that some advocates were paid to vote in a particular way. But again, they're just human beings. I've seen things are going around that some people were swayed by plates of food, and that cannot be proved. Or the faces of the candidates. Some people say some candidates had bad faces, and therefore the electorates could not choose them. But again, I want to say the whole process, for me, I have to give advocates credit where it is due. There might have been influences, but it is not something that I can pinpoint that this one was given this much. Yeah, but as they've said, with time we will see. You know, if you put somebody in, you can never know the strength of tea until it is in hot water. So the people who are elected are already in there, but as the time goes by, then they'll be revealing their character, and definitely, if they were leaning on any side, that will come out with time.
Okay, so moving on, most of the candidates came up with this idea of rebranding LSK and making sure that it's back out there, because apparently it has lost its glamour. That's the big debate. We have lawyers like Peter Wanyama who say that Parliament does not take law reform proposals from the council seriously anymore, and that you guys are no longer the mouthpiece as you were initially. What do you think going forward the leadership has to do to change that? How do they restore this lost glory?
You see, even the outgoing council came into office on the same understanding that they were going to restore the lost glory of the society. Because the society, the outgoing council and the new council are actually going to be the councils under the new act. There's an act of parliament that was passed in 2014. And so there are the councils that came before then were serving under different arrangements of law. And so when we elected in 2016, the understanding was that Isaac Okero's presidency and his council was to restore the lost glory of the society. That may not have been seen because of political jostling between within the council itself. You may have heard or noticed, and perhaps it's because that council served during the period that the country was undergoing through very serious political exercise. And so the society that, rather the council that is outgoing, did not, in my opinion, deliver on the promises. Much of its energy and efforts were spent in political jostling, leaning themselves to one side of the political divide or the other. And so they did not give us what we expected.
There were also rumors that the previous council focused more on the arbitration center, the controversial center that was to be built for 1.2 billion. They said that the previous council mostly focused the energies on that, and that's why they were also not able to deliver. So do you think it's entirely because of the elections, or does that have something to do with it?
Well, my colleagues have just said that given time we will see the true color of the council that we have just elected. Because the LSK is managed by a number of, there's a structure. There are organs of the society. The ultimate organ is the general body of the society, that is the AGM. And whenever we hold AGMs, usually we pass resolutions. We give them what we want to see in the next 12 months. And unfortunately, they have not been implementing what the society wants. They have been implementing what they in the council think is good for the society. That is why the Eric Mutua council that retired in 2016 were majorly concentrating on the arbitration center, which they thought is what the society wanted. But we told them in 2016 that that is not what we wanted. We told them that project is not what we wanted. And so the Isaac Okero came into office on the understanding that they will now listen to the voice of the society and implement what the society passes in various resolutions. So that what we expect the Allen Gishui council to do going forward is to listen to what we are saying and implement what we are saying. Because we are superior to the council. we, when we sit as the AGM, we are superior to them. So that once we sit, we pass resolutions, that is what we want to see going forward.
Oh yeah, what do you think?
Yes, I would have maybe similar thoughts as my senior, but to emphasize that the last council spent a lot of time in fighting. We saw instances where the president would issue a statement, then the vice issues a statement contra to what the president says, and that is really not healthy for the society, because then it would be hard to adopt a stand moving forward, you know, and that was for the larger part of the 2 years they were in office. But now the bigger thing, as my learned counsel puts it, is that we need to be more involved in the affairs of the society as members. When we go to the AGM, we need to put forth what we think the council should be implementing going forward. But you find that there has generally been laxity on the part of membership in attending meetings. When SGMs are called, when AGMs are called, members do not attend. Some attend and come in the morning and leave at 8:30.
Oh, so members are partially to blame for the lost glory.
Well, we have to take collective responsibility, because LSK is ours. When we started this, you mentioned that some 9,000 advocates were eligible to vote.
Yeah.
You would be shocked that almost half didn't vote, half didn't turn up to vote. So you see, it starts from the elections, that when we are exercising our right to universal suffrage at the ballot, only 50% turned up to exercise that right. But the persons elected into office are supposed to be representative of the whole society. Then when we go into meetings, the same thing replicates itself. Those who turn up for meetings are hardly a third of the membership. But then the resolutions passed at the council are binding and are geared to steer the society moving forward. So we must, if we want to reclaim the lost glory of LSK, as we put it, all the membership must stand up to be counted. The third thing is that for me, my seniors talked about the Law Society of Kenya Act of 2014. That act brought several changes to the manner in which we run LSK, and one of them was the fact that we now don't call the chair, we call him president. But more importantly, the term limit for the president was capped at 2 years. So he can only go for one term of 2 years. In political parlance generally, you find that when you don't have a chance for re-election, there is little incentive to work well in office, because then there is no reward, you know, at the end of it. So we saw the Isaac Okero Council go to slumber literally, because I think for them there was no motivation, you know, to do well so that they would be rewarded with another term. So this is something I think we should also revisit. We should think about this. If we need maybe the council to be up for re-election and have one more term to effect whatever it is they may not have effected in the first term, because you see, some of these projects are not things we can complete in a year. They may overlap to 3 years, and then we need that continuity. And it's more serious if the incoming president was not in good terms with the outgoing president. And the incoming council may say, well, we think this project was rubbish and we don't want to continue with it. Then you see now we derail progress in managing of election affairs and the affairs of the society generally.
So basically your house needs to be in order first before you...
We do. It's not a secret. It's not a secret. If we say advocates are people of high moral standing in society, then it got to start with us, right? We got to show the leadership. We got to inspire confidence in the general populace. So if, and I'm happy that all of us agree that our elections were conducted fairly. That's a springboard for me. That's a starting point. We can develop from there and say that we had various interests in the elections. We supported this candidate. I supported this candidate. He didn't support my candidate. But we now have a council. So moving forward, can we pull in one direction? Because that is something that was severely lacking in the last council. So that we do this for the betterment of LSK and for the general populace in totality.
Okay.
Yes.